I used to think the worst thing that could happen at a promotion party was someone drinking too much and embarrassing themselves. I never imagined I'd be the one standing in our kitchen at midnight, holding a phone that didn't belong to me, feeling like the entire foundation of my life had just cracked down the middle. The night started beautifully. That's the part that still messes with me. It was perfect. Jason had worked at the firm for 8 years. 8 years of 80-hour weeks, late-night conference calls, canceled vacations, and constant stress. When they finally made him senior partner, it felt like we both earned it. I'd been there through every breakdown, every "I can't do this anymore," every glass of bourbon poured after midnight. So when he got the call that afternoon, I screamed louder than he did. We decided to host the party at our house in Plano. Big backyard, string lights, catered barbecue, open bar. Very Texas, very suburban success story. I spent the whole week planning it. I ordered custom cookies shaped like briefcases with senior partner written in icing. I bought a navy blue dress that Jason once said made my eyes look like the ocean. I wanted him to look at me that night and think, she's the reason I made it. By 7 o'clock, the house was full. His coworkers, their wives, a couple of college buddies who flew in from Chicago, even our neighbors came over. The music was loud but not obnoxious, some classic rock mixed with pop. People were laughing. Jason was glowing. That's the only word for it, glowing. He had his arm around me most of the night. He introduced me to everyone as my rock and the woman who kept me sane. I could see the pride in his eyes, and I felt proud too. We'd been married 10 years. We didn't have kids yet. Always said we'd start trying next year once things slowed down, but I thought we had time. Around 9, the tequila started flowing heavier. His coworkers were toasting him, clinking glasses, retelling inside jokes about clients and courtroom wins. Jason gave a speech in the backyard under the lights. He thanked his team, he thanked his mentor. Then he looked at me. "And most of all," he said, smiling that crooked smile that used to make my knees weak, "I couldn't have done any of this without my wife. She sacrificed more than anyone in this room." Everyone clapped. Someone yelled, "Speech!" at me. I laughed and shook my head. I didn't need a speech. I felt secure, solid, chosen. If I could freeze one moment in my life and live in it forever, it would be that one. The shift was so subtle, I almost missed it. Around 10:30, I noticed Jason checking his phone more often. Not unusual, I told myself. Big promotion, lots of congratulatory texts. But something about the way he held it caught my attention, angled slightly away from me. Screen dimmed fast when I walked by. Once I came up behind him while he was standing near the patio door. He flinched. Actually flinched. "Jesus, you scared me," he said, laughing too quickly. "Sorry," I said, "didn't mean to." He slid the phone into his pocket immediately. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Not suspicion yet, just awareness. By 11, people started leaving. Hugs, leftover containers, promises to grab dinner soon. The house got quieter. Sticky floors, half-empty glasses, the smell of smoked brisket lingering in the air. Jason was buzzed but not sloppy. He looked tired, satisfied. "Best night of my life," he said, wrapping his arms around my head. "We." I kissed him. I meant it. He went upstairs to shower while I started loading the dishwasher. I remember thinking how domestic and peaceful it felt. Our life, our home, our future. Then I saw it. On the kitchen island, half hidden under a folded napkin, was a phone. Not his phone. Jason's phone was always in a black leather case with a small scratch on the corner. This one was plain, matte gray, no case, no visible wear. At first I assumed it belonged to one of his coworkers. Someone must have left it behind. I picked it up. The screen lit up immediately. No lock screen picture, just a generic background. And at the top, a notification banner slid down. "Miss you already. Tonight was hard. Call me when you can. L." My stomach dropped so violently I thought I might throw up right there. I stared at the message like it might rearrange itself into something harmless. Maybe it was about work. Maybe L was a guy. Maybe... Then another notification appeared. Can't believe she was right there and had no idea. I stopped breathing. The room held smaller, the air thicker. I looked toward the staircase. I could hear the shower running upstairs. Jason humming faintly, like everything in the world was fine. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I didn't know the passcode, but when I tapped the screen, it didn't ask for one. It was already unlocked. The messages were open, a thread labeled only with the letter L. I scrolled. Months. There were months of messages. Flirty at first, harmless seeming. Work lunches that turned into drinks. Complaints about me being emotionally distant. Jokes about how I wouldn't get his ambition. Then it got worse. Hotel reservations. Weekends, I thought he was at conferences. Photos of a downtown Dallas apartment I'd never seen before. Not explicit photos, but intimate ones. Her bare shoulder in a white sheet, his hand on her thigh at a restaurant. And then the message that shattered whatever illusion I still clung to. I hate lying to her, but I'm not ready to blow up my life. Not until the partnership is locked in. After that, we can figure out the divorce. Divorce. I had to grip the counter to stay upright. He wasn't just cheating. He had a plan. The shower upstairs turned off. Panic surged through me. I didn't know what to do. Put the phone back? Confront him immediately? Pretend I never saw it? My brain was racing, but my body felt frozen. Footsteps on the stairs. I placed the phone exactly where I'd found it, under the napkin. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he'd hear it. Jason walked into the kitchen in sweatpants, hair damp, smelling like soap and whiskey. "You're still cleaning?" he asked softly. "Come to bed." I looked at him. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't recognize my husband. Every memory we shared started flickering in my mind like a corrupted file. Our wedding in Santa Barbara, road trips to Colorado, the night we stayed up talking about baby names. All of it suddenly felt like a script I didn't know he was writing alone. "Did someone leave their phone?" I asked, my voice somehow steady. He froze. It was tiny, a half-second hesitation, but I saw it. "Phone?" he repeated. I nodded toward the island. His face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. "Oh," he said, too casually. That's just a work phone. They issued it for some clients." Work phone. At 11:30 at night. Hidden under a napkin. "With no case?" I asked quietly. He forced a laugh. "They're cheap." He walked over and picked it up, sliding it into his pocket without looking at the screen. I watched every movement. There it was again, that slight angle of his body, shielding it from me. "How long have you had it?" "A few weeks," he said. Didn't think it was a big deal. A few weeks. I knew that was a lie. I had seen messages from 6 months ago. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the dishwasher rack across the room. I wanted to grab him by the collar and demand the truth. Instead, I smiled. "That's cool," I said. "You should have told me." He relaxed instantly. I saw it. The relief. "Yeah," he said. "Sorry, it's been crazy." Crazy. I nodded and turned back to the sink so he wouldn't see the tears filling my eyes. In that moment, I realized something horrifying. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was how easily he lied, how naturally he stepped into it, like he'd been rehearsing. He came up behind me and kissed my shoulder. "I love you," he said. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt too much. Rage, grief, humiliation, fear. Because I didn't know who Elle was. I didn't know how deep this went. And I didn't know how long my husband had been living a second life, right under my nose. But I knew one thing. That phone wasn't going anywhere. And neither was I. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. Jason did. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl. He climbed into bed like nothing had shifted in the universe, wrapped an arm around my waist, fell asleep in under 5 minutes. Soft, steady breathing. Completely at peace. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan spinning above us, replaying every message I'd read. Every word. Divorce after the partnership is locked in. Like I was some temporary inconvenience. A placeholder. Around 2 a.m, he rolled over and his arm slid off me. I carefully eased myself out of bed, moving slow enough that the mattress wouldn't creak. The house was dark and quiet. String lights still glowing faintly outside in the backyard. The kitchen smelled like stale beer and barbecue sauce, evidence of a celebration that now felt like a funeral. I stood there for a minute, trying to steady my breathing. Then I went upstairs to his home office. Jason's office was always off limits in a subtle way. Not that he ever told me I couldn't go in, but it was his space. Mahogany desk, dual monitors, framed degrees on the wall, everything organized, controlled. There was a filing cabinet in the corner that he kept locked. I'd always assumed it was for client confidentiality. Now I wasn't so sure. I sat in his leather chair and opened the top drawer of his desk. Nothing suspicious. Pens, legal pads, a couple of business cards. Second drawer, more office junk. The third drawer stuck slightly when I pulled it. Inside was a small charging cable I didn't recognize. Not the standard iPhone charger we had all over the house. This one was thinner, sleeker, for the gray phone. So he charged it in here? In our house? While I was downstairs making dinner? My chest tightened so hard I had to sit back. I checked the trash can next to the desk, mostly crumpled papers. Then I noticed something wedged at the bottom. A receipt. I pulled it out and flattened it against the desk. The Crescent Hotel. Dallas. 2 nights. King Suite. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Jason had told me he had to attend a weekend legal conference downtown. I'd stayed home, binge-watched Netflix, ordered Thai food, texted him goodnight like an idiot while he was probably 10 minutes away from some woman in a king-size bed. I stared at the date on the receipt until it blurred. I needed more, not because I doubted what I saw, but because some part of me still hoped I was misunderstanding the scale of it. Maybe it was one woman. Maybe it was recent. Maybe I wasn't as stupid as I suddenly felt. I went back downstairs and stood outside our bedroom door. I could hear him snoring softly. The gray phone was in there, in his sweatpants pocket, or maybe on his nightstand by now. If I went in and tried to take it, I risked waking him. But if I waited until morning, he might move it, delete things. I felt like I was in some cheap thriller, except this was my actual life. I walked in. The room was dim, just the glow from the streetlight outside filtering through the curtains. Jason was on his side, facing away from me. The gray phone was on his nightstand, not even hidden. That almost hurt more. He was that confident. I moved slowly, carefully lifting it. My hands were steady this time, cold, focused. I walked back into the hallway and closed the bedroom door behind me. Unlocked. Still in the same message thread with Elle. I scrolled up further this time, past the months I'd already seen. 8 months. This had been going on for 8 months. At first, it was clearly flirtation. Late-night drinks after work. Complaints about stress. Then lines like, "You deserve to be happy. You're wasting yourself." Her name finally appeared in one of the messages. Lauren. My stomach flipped. I knew a Lauren. Lauren Mitchell. Marketing consultant. Mid-30s. Blonde. Sharp. Polished. I'd met her twice at firm events. Once at a charity gala downtown. She'd worn a red dress and laughed too loudly at something Jason said. I remember thinking she was confident. A little too comfortable around him. I scrolled faster. There were photos. Nothing explicit enough to be illegal or dramatic, but intimate. Her head on his chest. A selfie of them in a car. His car. The one I drove to the grocery store. And then a message from last week. After the promotion is official, I'll tell her. I just needed secured first. I can't risk anything blowing back on me. Blowing back on him. Like I was a liability. Like our marriage was a PR issue. My vision went red for a second. Pure, blinding rage. I opened the photo app on the phone. Dozens of pictures. Mostly her. Some of him. A few screenshots of apartment listings in Dallas. Apartment listings. My heart started pounding again. I clicked one. Luxury high-rise. Uptown. Floor-to-ceiling windows. 2-bedroom. 2-bedroom. Why 2? Was he planning to move in with her? Start over like I never existed? I heard the bed creak in the bedroom. I froze. Silence. Then quiet again. I stepped into the guest bathroom and locked the door just in case. I needed evidence. I didn't know why yet, but instinct told me not to confront him without it. I took my phone out and started photographing everything. The messages, the apartment listings, the hotel confirmations in his email app. He'd been sloppy. The gray phone had its own email account, a generic name, but the confirmations were all there. Dinner reservations, hotel bookings, an Uber receipt from an address in Uptown that matched one of the apartment buildings. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were surgical. Every screenshot felt like a nail sealing something shut. And then I saw something that made my throat close. A calendar entry for next month. Dinner with Elle's parents. Parents. This wasn't just sex. This was integration. I felt like I was watching someone slowly replace me in my own life. The bedroom door opened down the hall. "Babe." Jason's voice, thick with sleep. I quickly turned off the gray phone screen and slipped it under my arm. "Yeah?" I called back, forcing my voice steady. "You okay?" "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." He appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. For a split second, I wondered what he saw when he looked at me. Did I look different? Did guilt flicker across his face? He leaned against the wall. "Come back to bed." I held his gaze. "Who's Lauren?" The silence that followed was suffocating. His expression changed so subtly most people wouldn't catch it. But I did. His shoulders stiffened. His jaw tightened. "Lauren?" He repeated, too slow. "Yeah, Lauren."
He blinked once, twice. "Why?" I stepped closer, pulling the gray phone out from under my arm. "This, Lauren." The color drained from his face again. For a second, he didn't move. Then his eyes flicked to the phone, and I saw it. Not shame, not remorse, calculation. "How long have you been going through my stuff?" he asked quietly. My chest felt like it caved in. That was his first instinct. Not "I'm sorry," not "I can't explain," but "How long have you been going through my stuff?" I laughed. It sounded hollow even to me. "It's not your stuff," I said. "It's your other life." He ran a hand through his damp hair. "You weren't supposed to find that." The audacity of that sentence almost knocked me over. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for the panic, for the apology. Instead, he looked tired, like I was an inconvenience. "She doesn't mean what you think," he said. I held up the phone. 8 months, Jason. Hotel rooms, apartment listings, dinner with her parents. What exactly do you think I think? He exhaled sharply. "It's complicated." I felt something inside me snap. "No," I said quietly. "It's actually very simple." He stepped toward me, lowering his voice. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I asked. "After you signed a lease?" His jaw tightened again. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under," he said. And there it was, the shift. This wasn't going to be about his betrayal. It was going to be about his stress, about how hard his life had been, as if I hadn't been living in it with him. I felt the tears finally spill over, but my voice stayed steady. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. He didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything. He didn't answer me. That silence stretched so long I could hear the hum of the air conditioner kicking on downstairs. I watched his face, searching for something. Regret, panic, even fear. Instead, he looked cornered, irritated, like I'd forced him into a conversation he didn't feel like having at 3 a.m. "Of course I loved you," he finally said, but it came out flat, mechanical. "I still do." Loved, past tense. The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. "Still?" I repeated. He rubbed his face. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "I really don't." He stepped past me and went into the bedroom like this was some normal disagreement about finances or whose turn it was to take out the trash. I followed him, the gray phone still in my hand. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "I didn't plan for this to happen," he said. "Lauren and I started working on a clinic project together. It just developed. Developed like mold." "You booked hotel suites," I said quietly. "You looked at apartments. You met her parents. That doesn't just develop." He looked up at me then, frustration flashing across his face. "You think I'm proud of it? You think I wanted this?" I almost laughed again. The nerve. "I think you wanted both," I said. "You wanted me here, stable, loyal, holding down the house. And you wanted her, exciting, new, easy." He didn't deny it. That was the worst part. He didn't fight me on it. He stood up suddenly and started pacing. "You have to understand, things between us haven't been good for a while." My chest tightened. "Not good?" I said. "When did you tell me that?" He gestured vaguely. "We barely talk anymore. We're like roommates." I felt like I'd been slapped. "We barely talk because you're never home," I shot back. "Because you chose work over everything. I was trying to support you." "I know," he said, voice rising. "And that's part of it." I stared at him. "Supporting you is part of the problem?" "You revolve your whole life around me," he said. "It's suffocating sometimes." That hit harder than the cheating. Suffocating. 10 years. 10 years of showing up for him, of building a home, of planning a future, of waiting to start a family because his career needed to come first. And now I was suffocating. I swallowed hard. "So you found someone who doesn't expect anything from you?" He didn't answer. I looked down at the phone in my hand and something inside me hardened. The shock was fading. The heartbreak was still there, raw and bleeding, but underneath it was clarity. "Does she know about me?" I asked. He hesitated. "Jason?" "Yes," he said. "She knows I'm married." "Does she know you're planning to divorce me after your promotion?" He clenched his jaw. "So that's a yes." He ran his hands through his hair again, pacing faster now. "I didn't say it like that." "But you did say it." Silence. I felt my heart pounding in my ears. "You were going to leave me," I said, more to myself than to him. "You just needed to secure your title first." "It's not that simple," he snapped. "Then make it simple for me." He stopped pacing and looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "I worked my ass off for this partnership," he said. "Everything is tied to it. Reputation, clients, image. A messy divorce before it was finalized could have complicated things." There it was. Image. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was optics. I felt something cold settle in my chest, a kind of calm I didn't recognize. "So what was the plan?" I asked quietly. "Tell me exactly how this was going to go." He hesitated again, which told me he had thought about it. I was going to sit you down, he said, explain that we've grown apart, that it's nobody's fault. We'd handle it amicably. Amicably? Like we were dissolving a business partnership. You were going to blindside me, I said. I wasn't going to blindside you, he said defensively. I just needed the timing to be right. For you, I said. He didn't argue. The room felt smaller by the second. I looked around at our bedroom, the framed wedding photo on the dresser, the throw pillows I'd picked out, the life we built piece by piece. And suddenly I saw it from above, like a stranger, a stage set. You brought her into my car, I said slowly. You stayed in hotels 10 minutes from this house. You came home to me after being with her. He didn't deny any of it. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? I asked. I was trying to protect you. That was it. That was the sentence that made something snap permanently. Protect me? I repeated. From unnecessary pain, he said. If I'd left before the promotion and something fell through, it would have been chaos for both of us. Both of us. I stared at him and finally saw him clearly, not as my husband, not as the man I married on a cliff in Santa Barbara while the sun set behind us, but as someone calculating risk, someone who saw relationships like assets. You weren't protecting me, I said quietly. You were protecting yourself. His silence confirmed it. We stood there facing each other, the weight of 10 years hanging in the air between us. Are you in love with her? I asked. That question seemed to hit him differently. He looked away. I care about her, he said. That's not what I asked. He swallowed. Yes. The word landed like a brick in my chest. I felt my knees weakened, but I refused to sit down. How long? I asked. He hesitated. A few months. So while he was thanking me publicly in our backyard, while he was telling a crowd of people I was his rock, he was in love with someone else. I felt stupid, humiliated, angry at myself for not seeing it. Does she think you're leaving me? I asked. Yes. Soon?
He nodded once. The betrayal layered over itself like thick, suffocating fabric. You let her believe you were building a life together, I said. You let me believe we were fine. You were running two realities at the same time. He finally looked at me with something close to frustration. You're acting like I'm some monster. I blinked at him. You had dinner with her parents on your calendar, I said, while I was planning this party. He exhaled sharply, like he was exhausted by my emotions. I didn't expect you to find out like this. There it was again. Not regret for what he did. Regret for getting caught. I felt the last piece of my denial crumble. The man I loved didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. Are you going to leave? He asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Leave? I echoed. Tonight, he said. Are you going to pack a bag and go to your sister's or something? I stared at him. He was already strategizing. Damage control. I'm not leaving my house, I said quietly. He studied me, as if recalibrating. So what happens now? He asked. I looked down at the gray phone in my hand. What happens now? The truth was, I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't going to be the clueless wife he managed in the background while he built his new life. If he wanted to treat our marriage like a business deal, fine. I could think strategically too. I lifted my eyes back to him. You tell her it's over, I said calmly. His expression changed immediately. What? You tell Lauren it's over, I repeated, right now, in front of me. The second I said it, I saw the shift in his eyes. Not sadness, not heartbreak, panic. That's not how this works, he said carefully, like he was talking to a client who didn't understand contract terms. I held the gray phone out to him. Then explained to me how it works. He didn't take it. You can't force something like that, he said. It's complicated. I let out a slow breath through my nose. You had 8 months to manage complicated. He walked past me toward the window, pushing the curtain aside like he needed air. The street outside was quiet, a few porch lights still on, suburban calm. Meanwhile, my entire life was detonating in this bedroom. I care about her, he said again, softer this time. I'm not going to humiliate her. I actually laughed at that. Humiliate her? I repeated. You humiliated me. He turned around sharply. Lower your voice. That was it.
That was the line that did something irreversible inside me. "You're worried about the neighbors hearing?" I said. "You weren't worried about them seeing you leave for conferences every other weekend." His jaw tightened. "This doesn't have to get ugly," he said. "It already is." He stepped closer, lowering his voice like we were negotiating something delicate. "If you push this, you're going to regret it." The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I stared at him, searching his face for any trace of the man I used to know. Instead, I saw someone calculating outcomes again. "What does that mean?" I asked quietly. "It means," he said slowly, "that divorces can get messy, especially when emotions run high." There it was. He wasn't scared of losing me. He was scared of losing control. I felt something inside me settle into place, a clarity that cut through the hurt. "You already planned to leave," I said. "You just wanted to do it on your timeline." He didn't respond. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, surprising even myself with how steady my voice was. "You're going to call her. You're going to tell her you're not leaving your wife, that whatever fantasy you've been selling her is over." He shook his head immediately. "I'm not doing that." "Then I will." That stopped him. "You don't even have her number," he said. I held up the phone slightly. "Don't I?" For a moment, neither of us spoke. The power dynamic had shifted, and we both felt it. "You'd blow everything up?" he asked. "You already did." He ran a hand down his face. "You don't understand what you're risking." "No," I said quietly. "You don't understand what you've already lost." I walked past him and sat down on the edge of the bed. My legs felt weak, but my mind was sharp now, focused. "I'm not begging you to stay," I said. "I'm not crying and asking what she has that I don't. I don't want to compete with someone who knowingly sleeps with a married man." His expression flickered for a second at that. "I'm giving you a choice," I continued. "You end it right now, or I make sure everyone in your perfectly curated world knows exactly who you are." He stared at me. "You'd ruin my career?" he asked. "I'd tell the truth." Silence filled the room again, heavier this time. He looked at the phone in my hand like it was a live wire. Finally, he exhaled. "If I call her and say it's over, it won't be real." That sentence hurt more than anything else he'd said. "So it is real," I said. He didn't answer. The air between us felt thick, suffocating. I stood up slowly. "You don't love me anymore," I said, not as a question. He looked at me then, and for the first time that night, I saw something close to honesty. "I don't know," he said. That was enough. I nodded once. "Okay," I said quietly. I walked over to my dresser and pulled out a small suitcase from the bottom drawer. The zipper sounded too loud in the stillness. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm not staying in this bed tonight," I said. "And I'm not staying in this house while you decide between your wife and your girlfriend like you're choosing between job offers." "You said you weren't leaving," he said quickly. "I'm not leaving permanently," I corrected. "I'm removing myself from the humiliation." I opened the closet and started pulling clothes off hangers. Not frantically, not dramatically, just methodically. He stood there watching me, like he hadn't expected this outcome. "You're overreacting," he said finally. I froze. "Overreacting?" I turned slowly to face him. "It's not like I don't care about you," he added, as if that softened anything. "You fell in love with someone else while married to me," I said. "You planned a future with her. You scheduled dinner with her parents. And I'm overreacting?" He didn't respond. I zipped the suitcase shut. "Are you going to tell her?" I asked one last time. He hesitated. That hesitation was my answer. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat, but I refused to let him see me break. As I reached the hallway, he called after me. "So that's it?" I stopped. I didn't turn around. "No," I said quietly. "This is just the part where you realize I'm not as replaceable as you thought." I walked downstairs, grabbed my car keys from the kitchen counter, and paused for 1 second in the middle of the living room. The string lights were still glowing faintly outside. Empty cups scattered across the patio. The banner that read "Congratulations" hanging crooked against the fence. Hours ago, this house was full of applause and pride. Now it felt like a stage after the audience leaves. Quiet, hollow. I walked out the front door and closed it behind me. The night air was cool against my face. My hand shook as I unlocked my car, but I didn't cry. Not yet. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced at the house in the rearview mirror. The upstairs bedroom light was still on. I didn't know if he was calling her. I didn't know if he was sitting on the bed staring at that second phone, trying to decide which life he wanted more. What I did know was this. He thought he could control the timing, control the narrative, control me. He was wrong, because while he was busy building a second life, I was about to start rewriting mine, and this time he wouldn't see it coming.